It's the internet. Look at you there. How we've missed you. So, this is fun. This is we've had so much fun with this that we've decided to just continue flying me around the world with a portable broadcast studio in my checked luggage over to Sweden, where I can meet my good friend Mattias.
Hello.
Always glad to be back with you.
Always
glad to be with everybody here. So we're gonna be getting started here, but we're kind of gonna give some people some time to get into the act here, and we got a lot to talk about, but we're gonna actually be breaking it up a little bit.
Yep.
Into episodes.
Exactly. There's a lot of stuff in Reason 10, and we can't cover it all in a 1 hour stream, so one thing at a time.
Right. And as much as some people might like us to be on for 4 hours, we're going to break it up out of humanity to to the bulk of viewers. So let's get started. I mean, first of all, Mattias, we are talking about Reason 10, and that is in large part your brainchild.
Yeah, one could say that. It's probably the first version I've actually been the product manager for from start to finish, and it's super exciting actually.
So I guess since that's the case, I mean, with Reason 9, the way things go, you tend to inherit. When you came on as a Reason product manager, you sort of inherited some of the vision that came before you.
Sure.
And then you carried the ball over the finish line.
Right.
But with this one, you got to really do some of the early thinking. I wonder if you could give people some insight into the thinking that went into Reason 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I found is really important when I've talked to people and myself as a user, and when getting your DAW, one thing that's really important is to have all that great content that makes great sounds, right? There's so much out there, but you want to make sure in a way that the basics are there, that the things that sound really good, that make your music sound really good, are just there in the box. So you can use them whenever. And it's funny, this is actually pretty much exactly 10 years after Thor came out. Thor's a great synthesizer, but that's 10 years.
Right. And so Thor is one of those synths that was wonderful when it came out, is still wonderful. I mean, it's like, we don't think of anything in the Reason rack as being sort of deprecated.
Sure.
But certainly there was an opportunity to say, okay, well, if we were to do it again,
exactly,
and we were to do something new, what gaps can we fill? What exciting sort of sonic developments can we add to this?
Exactly. What would happen if we did a new exciting Reason synth today?
Yeah. And so with that, you and the geniuses in the back room there came up with Europa.
Yep. Europa was one of the first things we came up with for Reason 10, actually, just in terms of what we were going to do.
So what is the, if I were to have walked into those early discussions, the moment that you had sort of arrived at the concept of Europa, what was the gist of it before it is what we know today? What was the sort of vision for it?
Right. It's interesting. It's actually a lot happened during work on it. We tried it out with different people. We checked it out. We tried playing it and so on. But the first real idea was to do something really modern, something that created the sounds that are used today, something that had a bit more, maybe a modern edge than Thor, that was wide, that was sparkly, but that could also, do a lot of different things. That's what I really appreciate in a synth, that you can have it as, the analog simple mono bass, or something like big, evolving, or really sharp,
Right.
So that was kind of the first vision.
I'm gonna take a break here. I'm watching comments come in here.
Yeah.
There's a couple of comments about you having the biggest beard ever.
Thank you.
And one person actually wonders about the compatibility of their own facial hair with Reason 10. Do we have facial hair requirements for it?
It's not required. I was pushing for that for a while, but not everyone is as lucky as me.
Well, Paul Ortiz says he still likes Subtractor. Am I weird? Well, no, you're not weird. I mean, this is the beauty of, different instruments in Reason helping you work and make music differently. Yeah. So as much as you love Subtractor, and believe me, I love Subtractor. I am, give me a square wave and a delay and
right then you're happy.
I'll be happy for quite a while. But
it's funny. We actually just had a situation at the office where Stefan, who has like an experimental electronica band, he was looking for like a really weird, dirty sound that he couldn't explain. then I understood what he meant was that he wanted a lot of aliasing. He wanted a lot of issues with the sound. So Subtractor with the low bandwidth, that's his go-to now, right? Subtractor low bandwidth on, and it sounds just digital and harsh and quite lovely, actually.
Right,
so
interesting.
You're not weird, Paul.
So no, you're not weird, Paul. I mean, that is the thing, that synths and instruments and effects and everything that is part of the Reason family of effects and utilities and all this stuff, they all have their purpose. They all excel at what they do. And so by bringing in Europa, we're not saying that you're weird if you still want to use Subtractor. We're saying that you should and should love using a Subtractor and Maelstrom and Thor and Europa. And it becomes a new tool in your toolbox. And what a tool it is, if I may say. And with that very adept segue, maybe we should actually start taking a look at it here, guys.
Yeah.
So
check it out.
So let's start out here in the rack.
Yeah. So this is actually kind of bonus information for you guys, but I have made a favorites list here, and I have my device Europa.
Let's zoom in for it.
Small thing where you can add devices to your favorite list. So I'm just gonna drag this in to the rack.
So people who may not be realizing what we're talking about here, we've added the icon basically. So if in your favorites list now, things are going to be categorized and grouped by device thumbnail, so you can
you can get devices in favorite lists and patches and WAV files and stuff. It's just a quick way to sorting.
Right.
So this is the beast, if you will.
Yes.
You've probably seen the screenshots. You've probably maybe listened to the sound demos. And what I want to start with is maybe talk about the different sections and what they do and why they're here and what kind of stuff they're good for.
Right.
And precaution, Europa is quite a complex synth.
Yeah, so I guess this is a fair point. Whenever we talk about synths, the temptation, I think, of any technical thing is to try and keep it simple and digestible for people. But to do that with a synth that's this powerful would be to jettison a lot of the beautiful complexity that makes it powerful.
Yeah.
So we're gonna deep dive today.
Yep.
And I think I'll do my best to try and both field questions if people want to know a little more. If they're not as familiar with certain synth terminology, please by all means ask a question. And if I'm unfamiliar, I might even sort of play the role of the naive questioner.
Yeah.
A question guy. That's what my
question guy.
Yeah, I'm question guy.
And I'm answer guy.
And you're answer guy. So that's how that works out.
Yeah. So really, even though it looks complex, some of the basics are quite straightforward actually. So we should start in the engine section.
Okay.
And the engine, it's called an engine because it's more than just the oscillator. But the basic patch, now I've reset this patch, nothing's going on, and we have this waveform right here. And that's just
a sine wave.
Sine wave.
Okay.
Right.
So far, Paul, Subtractor and this are right on par.
But as a wavetable synthesizer, of course, wavetables include many waveforms that you can sweep between with this shape rotary.
Now, I wonder, maybe this is even a place where we just want to take a quick pause here and make sure we're all on the same page with the term wavetable synthesizer.
Yep.
Because people may have seen things like Maelstrom. It's called a grain table synthesizer, and people may have seen wavetable modules in Thor, and they may have heard about other synths and VST synths that talk about being wavetable synthesizers. But let's actually just real quickly give people a rundown on what is a wavetable synthesizer and why is that cool.
Right. So basically, instead of having an oscillator generating kind of a static waveform, it's a bunch of single cycle waveforms that you can morph between. The cool part is that you can morph between them, right? So you can go from one waveform seamlessly, or in some cases not seamlessly with really old wavetable synths, to the next. So it's simplest to demonstrate this with the patch I've got right now. So at the beginning it was a sine wave. However, when I turn the shape here, it's morphing between some waveforms.
And could you just, so for the sake of resolution and stuff, can we zoom in on the engine section?
Sure. So,
and while Mattias does that, I'm just going to put a quick word. Since we're kind of now getting into the nitty gritty and really kind of looking at Europa, now would be a good time to say, if you guys are watching and enjoying this, share this so that you can, let your friends know to maybe tune in if they weren't aware about it. So by all means, hit the share button while we're going, and let's invite as many people as we can to watch this.
Yep. So just to repeat, This one I can shape. I can morph. In this case, it's between quite basic waveforms. The one you'll find in a basic analog synth, hence the name. But the fun thing with wavetable synthesizers is, of course, that you have a bunch of different wavetables. So I can select some different ones here. Here's one I like called Game, which kind of reminds you of those old gaming systems.
Now, already, just as a music maker, what happens to me is I go, the sweeping of the wavetable alone is its own sound, you know?
Exactly.
And so that becomes a knob that we can either automate or we could modulate with LFOs, or we can do a lot of things with it to make that evolving sound that you have is quite cool.
You have it set up here with just a modulation selector already routed to the shape. Right now it's an envelope. I can change this to, say, an LFO. Or I can just find a waveform that I really like and go, okay, this is mine.
Right.
That's the fun part of wavetable synthesis, I think, that you can both manipulate these over time in cool ways, or you can just find that perfect waveform and use it like any basic subtractive analog synth.
Right.
So in this list, you have quite a few different waveforms, and it might be worth talking about what makes this a dynamic wavetable synth.
Yes. This is something that we talk about in the Reason 10 launch video, but this is something definitely worth going through.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's an example of an algorithm that, as a wavetables are static unless you move them, pretty much. So you choose a waveform in the cycle, and it kind of stays there. We've done something that means that the wavetables are updated continuously. So here's one that when I play it, you can see it actually happens stuff with the waveform.
And so what I was talking about, where I heard you sweeping the wavetable, we're still sweeping between static states. And we are doing the sweeping. It's up to us to make that sweep happen. But this is different. That it's an evolving waveform or wavetable, in the same way, but it's not just sweeping static states in the wavetable.
So if I sweep this car plus strong algorithm, which is a simulation of a string, I'm still sweeping it with the shape, but it does other stuff too. Which makes it actually really cool.
Yeah.
It's stuff you can't do in a normal wavetable synth.
Right.
And
Very
we have
cool.
a couple of those algorithms, just to show you another one. We have, for example, in the noise section. Noise is kind of well known because it happens stuff to it all the time. That's what noise is. It's just a lot of frequencies, random frequencies going on. So with something like this FM feedback, which is a simulation of doing frequency modulation, again, a bit advanced, but the feedback introduces noise. And that noise means that it's not static, this waveform.
Now, noise is a cool one because, noise for people that are new to sound design, it's an ugly sound if you just think about it as noise, but it's actually one that when you get into sound design, it's one of the most useful tools.
Absolutely.
And there are, there's people like Lucky Date, for example, DJ Lucky Date, who makes sound design tutorials, and I'm amazed at how many times you see him creating noise oscillators to add color and grit and attack, and it serves all these useful functions in a sound that you wouldn't think about if you're just thinking about the noise on its own.
Exactly. In terms of making like these really thick but standout, say, sawtooth leads that you hear in a lot of modern EDM, a big part of that is actually having some noise in the high frequencies. So they really cut through that high frequency hiss. And
right.
It's one of the greatest tricks for synthesizers, that add a little bit of this at the top and it's going to really come through.
Right. So that's cool. And then you can sort of dial in the character of that noise in the way that you did there.
Exactly. So after we've kind of chosen a wavetable or an engine, if you will, this goes through to modifiers. This is where it starts getting a bit complex. And my biggest recommendation is that try them out, see what happens. So I can show you a couple of these and kind of, let you get a feel for it. But what I found when using Europa was really fun is just trying the different combinations of wavetables and other things. So having this basic sine wave again, we can turn on modifier 1. This is now set to fold. And what it will do is, kind of like the name implies,
Now, you say, as a sound designer, as a synth geek, you say, "Oh yeah, fold," as the name implies.
Exactly.
Now, to me, I see no folding. I fold my laundry, but I see no folding in terms of the folding design. So, what are you describing as folding? I see the waveform obviously modifying.
Yeah. So what's happened with the waveform is that you keep pushing it up towards the edge of the screen in this case, right? But the edge of the amplitude. And when it reaches that point, it folds back.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, it is folding
back. It's actually folding.
It actually is folding. Okay.
Yeah. And to have another example, you have stuff like, invert and mirror, which will actually do that to the waveform. They will invert it or mirror it. So taking a sawtooth here, you do invert, you can see, oh, I'm inverting the sawtooth.
Huh. It sort of comes into being a triangle and then an antiphase saw at its extremes.
Inverting it, it's only inverting to the middle, and suddenly it's half a triangle.
Right.
So it's quite scientific in a way.
Right.
But what's cool is when you just start trying sounds with these different modifiers.
Right.
So there's a bunch of them here.
Some people have caught on. In fact, Paul Antonio Ortiz has caught on that we are looking at visual feedback for these, both for the wavetables and for the modifiers.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, Paul, yeah, that's right. Strike one against Subtractor. Yes, the visual feedback on Europa is wonderful.
Yeah, I think this was one of the most important things we did in the design of this. Was some of these concepts are quite tricky. They're like DSP magic, and it's important to let people at least see what's happening. Even if you don't understand exactly, you'll see that, oh, the waveform changes like this. That means it becomes sharper or it becomes higher in pitch.
Right, and you see it in the one that you just did where we were moving from a sawtooth into a triangle. Yeah. When you get into that middle point, you hear that classical sort of softer triangle.
So if we look at this faded sync, which is a classic sync sound where you sync one oscillator to the pitch of another, that means the pitch will audibly go up. And you can see that we're adding more.
It sounds like we're moving through the partial harmonic series.
And we're adding, more ups and downs per cycle. And more ups and downs is faster, higher notes.
Yes, okay.
So you can see a lot from this screen, which I think is great.
Yeah, okay, right. Randy Espoda, I hope I'm saying that right, says I'm falling in love, which...
Good, me too. This is the most fun synth I've ever worked with, to be perfectly honest, and I've worked with a lot of synths.
Yeah, I mean, you are a bona fide synth geek. You have the modular systems. You've messed with every synth on the planet.
Yeah,
and now you got what is the synth that you want if you were to design one? That's quite a fun task.
This is very close.
Yeah.
So a couple of other modifiers that might be cool to see. When we talked about the dynamic wavetables. Here you have noise mod. That's a typical example of, look, it's a dynamic modifier. It's actually doing stuff to the sound that's dynamic, that's happening over time without you actually automating something.
Right. Now, some questions that are coming in in the comments here repeatedly is related to the importation of wavetables. And it's worth answering people. Can it import wavetables?
Right. It can't import wavetables, but you can draw wavetables. So it's a bit different, but I can show you that.
Should we? Is that something you want to cover down the road when we get into the envelope section? Because I think that's where that lives. Or do you want?
We'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, the answer is it's a two-step answer really. Yes, so we'll come back to that.
Yep, absolutely. So with these two modifiers, you have quite a lot of things that you can start doing. So if I combine, for example, this noise mod that doesn't do much on a sine wave, because that's a bit of weirdness, with something else, like, say, the fold we heard before. You're starting to get this movement and this quite complex waveform from what used to be a sine wave.
Right, that is coming off of, we're starting with the most pure tone you can have.
Yep.
And creating something quite
exactly. And you can do the exact opposite too. So in the wavetables section, we have quite a few different wavetables. So let's take something like this shifter. This is already pretty complex. So if I just sweep it. That does a lot. So when you add something like folding to it, suddenly you'll hear a lot of differences.
Wow.
Can get quite nasty.
It can really get quite nasty. Yeah, absolutely. That is cool. Linus had Linus posted a comment. He said that it's such complex sounds, but such an easy interface.
Yeah.
Which I think is, it's credit obviously to everybody that went into the design and the UX of it and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really important to make it easy to understand, even though it's tricky concepts.
Which is kind of a neat thing. When I at the top of this, I said that we're going to be taking a deep dive, and maybe this is something that if you're new to synth and sound design, it's it might feel overwhelming to talk about. Even the word modulation can be an intimidating word if you're just beginning.
Yeah, right.
Synth sound design. But what I have found with Europa is that as complex as it is, it's also one of the most approachable synths. In the way that Thor is. You sort of have to understand each module in Thor, and then you have to kind of understand the signal flow in Thor, and there's something about Europa that I think is really approachable if you're just getting started in sound design. And it also has a little bit of a playful element where it's like, turn a knob, but choose a modifier, turn on one or two and see what they do. And because you have that visual feedback, you it helps guide your understanding as well. So,
and what someone said in the comments, I think it might have even been Stefan. This is still only one engine using half of the engine, right? So it's already getting complex sounds, but
right.
You can do a lot of stacking and stuff. So let's move over to the next section. We shouldn't dwell too long on this because you've got to have something to explore when you get it, right?
Yeah, sure.
You got to check it out. The next part is the spectral filter. And you go, okay, what's the spectral filter? And this is, again, the exciting part about this being a dynamic wavetable synth. So what we really do, if I turn this on, it's now set to LP12. And you can kind of imagine that, that's a low-pass filter.
Sure.
The low frequencies pass, has some resonance, and the other thing is filtered out.
Right. Classic, going back to Moog, and it's, classic.
Absolutely. However, what this is really doing is generating new wavetables based on the filter setting. So it's not an actual filter. It's changing how the wavetable would sound with this filter on it.
You've almost lost even me. Where it's sort of a virtualization of a filter's behavior.
Yeah. So, and what that means is that you can do stuff that's not possible to do with a filter. So yes, low pass 12, fun. However, have something like this. This is a low pass filter where you can change the slope dynamically. Which is pretty cool.
And you're changing the slope without you're not getting that little resonance bump. Like, exactly. I know that sometimes you can up the resonance to kind of on a traditional filter. If you up the resonance, it sort of creates a little bit of that slope. Yeah. But with you get that little peak bump.
Exactly. And the slope isn't always as sharp as it could be here. Here you have extreme control over the overtones. And you can also do really weird stuff like these resonator modules. This filter curve is not your standard filter curve. Now we're almost into parsec territory, where you can change each of the overtones in the sound.
Interesting.
Which is really cool. And one thing that you can do here, that again I will talk about soon, is that you can draw your own filter too. You can draw your own filter curve and use that to filter the waveform.
Huh.
Which is a super cool thing to be able to do, I think.
Right. John Knight says, Reason makes the best filters bar none. Well, thank you. Thank you, John. I think.
I have very happy news for you, John, when we come to a later section. You're going to be very excited. On
the Reason Talk community, the forum, the Reason Talk forums.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, hi, guys. There was recently a thread started. There was a Peter Ubel appreciation thread.
Yes.
And to a large degree, when we say Reason makes the best filters, Peter makes the best filters. I mean, he really is so much of the brains behind the DSP that
and
goes
he's
on.
got some new tricks up his sleeve that you'll be happy to see. So the spectral filter is kind of used to shape your sound even more. It's more the part where you kind of maybe remove some stuff, because you can get so complex with the waveform, the wavetable, and the modifiers that you want to tame it a bit. And the next section of the spectral filter is the harmonics section. And what this does is, instead of working on the whole waveform, it works on the individual overtones. And that sounds a bit strange, perhaps. What it really does is I can do stuff like...
Since I had a little shot of you up in the corner, but we blocked the menu. Can you show the harmonics menu again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, just so people can see what you were selecting from there.
Yep. Here we have stuff that has to do with the overtones. So here I'm just choosing odd or even harmonics, which is pretty cool. So if I have, say, a very complex sound, let's do maybe an FM sound that without all this stuff sounds like this. Maybe add some modulation. Using the harmonics means I can remove only the odd overtones or the even one. Let's change position. And actually it might be even better with some of these super crazy wavetables.
Yeah. Now, while we're making all these cool sounds, a comment flew by, and I'm sorry I missed the name. They were asking effectively about performance, CPU performance on this. And will it set my computer on fire? I think they asked.
No, it's actually quite good, quite cheap. I was really nervous about this when we designed this because we had so many crazy ideas. But the testing we're doing now, and this is the logging version, by the way, it's still impressive.
Yeah, I have to say too, when we were working on the Reason 10 announcement video, I worked with Adam Fielding. Shout out to Adam Fielding, who did a wonderful soundtrack for this video. But when he sent the Reason file, I remember you opened the Reason file, and the first thing you remarked on was the DSP meter. This is a Reason file full of grain and multiple instances of Europa. It's full of all that stuff.
It's a soundtrack thing, so it's enormous.
It's enormous. It's big. It's got multiple layers, multiple instances of all this stuff, and it was. Yeah,
it was good. I'm very happy about that. So try it out when the beta comes. Then you can see how it works when we also have all the beta code. But then when the trial and the full version comes out, that's when you really see it in action.
Right.
And another cool thing I just want to show with the harmonics before we leave that section.
Yes.
So odd even, it's a bit of an esoteric example. You go, what do I need odd even for? That might be hard to put into music. But I talked about noise before. Here's something called HF noise. And this is something that I think is really cool. Basically, you're allowed to add noise to the sound, but you can change where it begins.
Oh, in terms of which
frequency. So is the noise in the lower end of the spectrum, the entire end, or just at the top, a bit of sizzle at the top. So if you have like a sawtooth, you add a bit at the top here. It stands out more.
Yeah, interesting. And this is the type of noise that we're saying becomes a coloring thing for sound design, that you just want that little bit of...
Yeah, something weird happens.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what the harmonic section is really good for. It's good for adding a bit of weirdness to what might be basic sounds. And these, of course, can be fully automated and modulated and all that stuff, right? Quite straightforward. The last part of the engine section... and this comes with a bit of a disclaimer.
Oh, yes. This does come with a bit of a disclaimer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Through the wonders. I mean, there's a small percentage chance that you guys out there are hearing this broadcast in beautiful stereo, but it's up to Facebook to decide that. And the majority chances that you are not. You're probably getting this in mono.
Yep.
And so, for what it's worth, I would say Unison, these big wide Unison sounds are not going to sing in mono the same way that they
might not impress you as they will when you actually use the synth.
Right.
But it's the thought that counts. You'll be happy to see.
It is the thought that counts. And I will say that I do believe that we're going to be able to show you guys this broadcast in stereo. I hope I'm not overpromising, but I do believe that there will be a stereo version of this to check out if you do want to hear these.
Right. So looking at the Unison section, this is something that we, of course, felt was really missing from Thor, being a 10-year-old synth. It's just being able to stack a bunch of voices up. detune them, stereo spread them, blend them. So if I turn this on, now it's set to just one voice. Nothing strange. I can start adding to this. And now I have 4 voices. I can detune them. And I can also choose how much stereo spread is between them. So now it's like the biggest, widest one oscillator sound you'll hear.
I'm very excited to report David Lang says he's hearing stereo, so that might be true.
Good for you, David Lang.
Yeah.
I hope
hey, everybody, if you're not getting stereo, go over to David Lang's house because he's got it.
He's got it. He wants to share. So it's quite standard, but it's super useful. Up to 7 voices, detune, stereo spread, and the blend, so you can take away the detune voices a bit. Have them kind of be in the background.
Oh, that's cool.
You also have different unison ways to tune. Octave down, just like it sounds. Adds an octave down. And then you also have phase only, which is an interesting one. So while doing this, we love the unison sound, but we've been testing this for quite a while. And after a while, we went like, I really like the unison sound, but not the detune. I just want it big and wide, you know? I don't want that detune-y thing. Like
kind of chorus effect.
Exactly. And what phase only does is it just shifts the phase of the start of the oscillators into stereo, so you can get a really wide sound without it being detuned. And if you're in stereo, yes, you heard that.
Yeah. This is where all the people in mono we're going to just do a take our word for it and
exactly.
And check the hopefully the stereo version we publish later. So.
Yeah. But this is it's a really useful thing to get sounds big. And we're still using one engine. This is the case for each engine. Each engine can have a unison count and stereo spread and different,
right. Okay.
settings.
It's by this point where, my sort of the music making side of me starts really thinking about all the things we've gone through and the combination of them. And again, we're still only talking about 1 out of 3 engines.
Exactly.
But, some of the things that we did in terms of sweeping and those dynamic wave tables, the things we were doing with the modifiers, the things we were doing with the spectral filter, and now adding in the unison. I mean, that's some big sounds, and very complex sounds.
Yep. And we're only, in one engine, like we said. And it grows exponentially when you think about all the combinations. But moving into the filter, now I'm going to make you, filter guy whose name I forgot. I'm going to make you happy.
Oh.
So in the filter section, we have a normal filter too. The spectral filter is cool. It can do a lot of stuff. It can do low pass, high pass, and so on. But here we have actual normal filter emulations. If I just send this sawtooth oscillator into filter 1, here's a filter.
Okay, and that is a classic filter as we know it. That's not a spectral virtualization of a filter.
No, it's just sending the audio in, and it doesn't mess up the waveform in any way.
Right.
So this is a classic ladder design, 24 dB with quite juicy resonance and a bit of drive, which I like. A really good standard filter, similar to the one in Thor. What's cool is we've added some new filters, and we've added filters from time to time, but I think this is the first time we've added some special ones, some emulations of ages past, if you will. So we actually have K35 based on a popular Japanese chip, if you want, and this can get really screaming resonances. So cover your ears if you're afraid, but
it's got almost a AM tuning in an AM radio quality to it.
And if you up the drive to max and sweep this, you get this really nasty, nice tone.
I can't remember the Daft Punk song, but there is one.
That's the one.
There's probably 1,000, but there's one in particular that plays off of that idea alone.
And we also have multi-feedback filters, which has, if I remember the lesson I got from Peter correctly, has feedback on various parts of the filter. So it can also get quite aggressive. I can, of course, lower the drive to make it less aggressive.
For the sake of it, since we're on this little section, let's actually zoom in a little more.
Yep, absolutely.
Don't have to go crazy, but a little more. Yeah, that's good.
So you can sound normal, of course. Or you can go max it out. You can hear all those nice overtones. It's really quite lovely to work with. So the filter section, this is to kind of finally shape your sound. This is where you send the 3 oscillators or engines, if you want, in and do the kind of, okay, this is the filter. This is not the sound shaping of kind of finding the right bass sound. This is the classic subtractive, let's remove frequencies filter.
Right, okay.
This then goes into an amp envelope. This is, again, kind of standard, but this is where you shape your sound. So if I bring up the release.
Let me actually take your little thing about, yeah, okay.
Now it rings out.
Sure.
No, it doesn't.
So this is
basic stuff.
Yeah, this is something that you'll be familiar if you've used basically any synth. You're familiar with the amp envelope.
Exactly. Here, however, is something new. Is our envelope section in this sense. So yes, that's an envelope, but these are also envelopes. As you can see up here in the filter, you actually have a pre-routed envelope too. You can change this, have anything, but this particular envelope is now affecting the filter. You can follow it along on the screen even.
Oh, okay. So wait, I'm getting this, and I'm gonna get it out loud so other people are getting it too.
Yep.
So as we see in that envelope section, we're actually watching something effectively a playhead.
It's
sort
pretty
of
much time, yeah.
It's
an
time,
envelope
yeah.
is what happens over time.
Okay, right.
To a signal.
And so we see that through that graph, we're seeing the filter open, then we're seeing it kind of settle into a little plateau of sorts.
Yep.
Then there's a point at which it holds.
Exactly. And this is when I hold down a key, that when it sustains, this is what level will this filter be on then? What's the frequency? So if I actually move this, this is a sustain marker. So right now it holds here. Stays. I can move this and say, actually hold here.
And when you let up, it's now traveling the remainder of that path based on the release.
Yep.
The release time, right?
Exactly. So here, if I do this super slowly, I can just adjust the time here. So now it's going to be a really slow envelope. And it holds. And I let go.
Okay, right.
And this is a pretty basic envelope shape. We have a lot of envelope shapes. There's a couple of presets. If you just want to choose something really quickly, you can take this, for example. And you can even remove the sustain portion. Maybe you want to loop it instead.
And you get your Giorgio Moroder on.
And you get more of an LFO.
Yeah.
This envelope is super flexible. Of course, you can take something basic like this ADSR style curve, and you can add some more points. Maybe add one here.
It's something just worth mentioning. I'm seeing go by in the comments in terms of beat syncing, synchronizing with time, which is actually beat syncing, right?
Exactly.
So if we want that duration of that loop, for example, to actually move every bar or every beat or whatever,
to work with my metronome, with my song.
Yeah, with the song. That is just there's a button there for beat sync. It will just turn on, and then you're working with musical values.
Exactly. And then you have with these curves, since I can add a bunch of them, I can also change the slope here to get maybe a punchier attack. And you can start making like really complex things. I don't know why you would want this particular shape, but so you can create really complex envelopes.
Right.
There's also one thing, let's say you choose one of these.
Paul's asking how many points can an envelope have?
Oh, it's a couple hundred. I can't remember offhand, but it's many.
More than you'll feel like doing.
So check this preset, for example.
Yeah.
There's a lot of points. We also added a mode, so if you have these kind of square wavy things that you might want these to sequence things and go like, hey, I'm going to go up and then a bit down and then in the middle. that was actually always tricky to do in these kinds of envelopes. So we added this edit Y-pos mode, and which basically means that if 2 points are adjacent, you can just drag them up and down.
Right. Now, while you're doing that, we had a question come in from Kevin Outerbridge. He says, I'm not a sound designer, and so what are the more user-friendly sounds? I think the answer to that is that...
we're going to get there.
Yeah, we will get there, but I think it's the idea is that if you're not a sound designer, and I'm not a sound designer, what you are is you're a patch browser, and with no shame. You know, there's some stigma that sound designers like to put on us patch browsers, preset browsers. But I say it loud and proud. My inspiration starts from presets and patches, and then I dip my feet into the sound design world by starting to modify these things. So there's, you don't have to be a sound designer where you just start on a blank canvas, Kevin, right. But you can work from some fantastic presets that are coming with Europa.
We're going to show you a bunch of these.
Yeah.
So just a final note here is that if you just want to draw something, you have a freehand mode. If you just hold Command on my Mac and I think Control on PC, you can draw your own curves too. You don't have to do point by point.
And you get some, I think it was Paul's question, how many points can you have? You can see there that's more points than we can count. Few.
And we're now kind of getting back to another section. So I'm going to use this envelope 4 and just draw in maybe a weird waveform like this. And here I have another waveform. When we talked about the wavetable section, you asked, can you import wavetables? And right now, no, you cannot, but you can draw them. So here's one I've drew, then there's another one. If I'm going to turn off the filter for this, go back up to this section, I can choose envelope 3 and 4 as my wavetable. And here I'm morphing between these two envelope shapes. So here's kind of a square with rounded corners, and here's whatever I drew.
Beautiful.
And I can change this one too if I want and make it a bit weird. Maybe add a point here. I get a custom waveform. Now I can morph between these. So that, I mean, if you were afraid that you wouldn't have the waveform you wanted, you can draw the waveform you want.
Right.
There's a lot of flexibility in that, actually. So all the envelope presets also happen to be oscillator presets, which is a nice bonus.
Yeah, that is, that's where you get into just the depths of experimentation is, what, and I would imagine over time you probably find you like certain things that you draw, certain shapes that you draw your own type of waveforms in.
Yeah, and just save a patch and it's still there.
Yeah.
Right, the envelope section, you're going to have to use it and try it out. It can do a lot, and I don't want to show you, every single possible LFO or something.
Sure.
But it's really flexible, and that's what we went for. Then you have an LFO section, which is a bit more standard. It's your sine wave LFO, it's your square, it's some random waves. It's the stuff you're used to do.
Right. And to people that maybe haven't delved into this yet, LFOs are sort of the bread and butter of how you evolve a sound or a parameter on a synth over time.
Yeah, exactly.
So they just are a repeating oscillator. I mean, that just means they're a repeating pattern of a shape that can then modulate, which simply means to
change
alter
over time.
Yeah, change a parameter or part of the sound over time.
Yep. We have the mod matrix. We don't really want to talk about that in detail. It's where you can send things to other things.
This is people know. I mean, how many things now have we put mod matrices on? Parsec and on Thor and
We also have a new effects section. And this is again, it was something we talked about when we were talking about Thor and what did we want that Thor didn't have and so on. So here's quite an extensive effect section actually. So I have quite a basic sound. Maybe gonna turn up that envelope a bit. Here's where I add the spices. Here's where I add that stuff to make it a great patch. And again, this is a super basic patch, but let's say I want to add some distortion to it here. I can just turn it on. Add some drive. Mix it in a bit, maybe. So So yeah, super useful. We have a great sounding reverb with quite a bit of decay.
Oh.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite reverbs that we have, actually. I love this one.
Yeah.
You have a compressor, an EQ, a phaser that can also be a chorus and a flanger. So this is kind of where you finish off everything. And let's say you want to have the distortion after the reverb to see what would that be like. You can just drag that after the reverb and you hear this crunchy reverb. It's really fun to just drag and drop those and try it out.
Yeah. And maybe one thing we're saying, I mean, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves to some degree, but it's worth saying that the other synth that is in Reason 10, which is Grain, shares some similarities. There's some commonalities between these, so that getting to know and use the effects section in Europa, you can apply the same techniques, and getting to know the envelope section and the tools that are in there, you can apply those same things to Grain as well.
Since both of these would be standard in Reason 10, new native devices, we really wanted them to be, once you learned one, you have a lot of knowledge about the other one too. So you don't have to relearn how to do the envelopes or the Lfos or the effect section.
Right.
I think that's really important.
David Villalobos wants to know if these are all new effects algorithms.
It's a mix.
Okay.
It's a mix. Peter isn't at the office actually right now, and I saw that question on Recent Talk, so I haven't gone to the bottom of it, but some of them are new. I think the reverb is similar to the one in Parsec with some changes to the algorithm. I know there are some new distortion algorithms, so different.
Yeah, okay. And I'm seeing some people chat about the reordering of effects. Let's just take a look at that again, because that's something that we did it quick. But yeah, so what Mattias is doing is actually reordering the order of the effects by just simply dragging them around.
Exactly. So now I have the distortion after reverb.
So what we're doing is we apply the reverb, and now we're distorting the reverb.
Yep. And now I have the distortion before reverb.
Which is, yeah, I mean, it is obviously the opposite, but it's worth just sort of saying that drastically alters the sound. If you are distorting something that has already had the acoustic, echo, room acoustic reflections applied to it, that's very different.
Especially important with like a compressor. Do you want to squish the sound together before you send it into the reverb? Or do you want to tame the reverb, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you want the reverb to be squished together or just be kind of neutral on top of a squished sound?
Right.
But we've talked quite a bit of technical stuff and layout and what's this section. I want to play some awesome patches.
Right. Because, if we were to now start building up patches using, multiple engines and getting into all that stuff, it would be a very long stream.
It would.
But also to people like, I think it was Kevin who said, if you're not a sound designer, how do you get into this synth is really what his question was. And the answer is through some of these presets. So let's actually check some of them out, because boy, are they cool.
I think they're awesome. So this is kind of my own favorite list, I must admit, because we have well over 400 patches already done and some more coming in because we're still in beta. And these are some of the ones that I think showcases different things. And I might take a moment after one and talk about why it's cool and what it's doing, but mostly I just want to play some stuff.
Right.
So the first one here is kind of a dark, gritty, really kind of low-end bass. So let's try this out.
Now, it's going to be a bit of a tangent. We're just going to take a quick break. Before we go into Patch Mania, I'm seeing a lot of comments. So I was going to do this later, but, the people want to see the back of the rack.
Oh, the back. I'm so sorry.
So let's do it.
The back of the rack, you have the normal sequencer control, and you have CV in and out, so you can pipe stuff out of the envelopes, for example, give Thor some brand new envelopes, or send things in to modulate any parameter. And you also, see how it works.
So, since we're here, let's zoom in a little more and just actually show people what we're talking. That's that block diagram is showing sort of the signal flow, as it were.
And then we have the modulation ins and outs here. So, connect pulsar here for an extra LFO, or take one of the envelopes out here, send it to something else, maybe another synth in your patch or in a combinator. And then you have the normal matrix and RPG8 sequencer control and all the awesome CV rack extensions.
Right. Okay. Chris Brewer says, now just to get us back on track, he says, Jesus, that bass patch is pure movie magic. And that's a good way to describe it. It's a very soundtrack epic kind of bass, but also, you know, in not just in music as well. I can think of a gazillion ways to use that.
Yeah, I just love that it's just rumbling away, kind of moving around. And this is just 2 engines, actually, which I'm going to point out every time we're not using 3. Because you can do so much with just 1 or 2. So let's move on to some other basses. Here is maybe more of a something step bass music bass. This is kind of a, you know, metallic kind of cool bass, and you can shape this, of course, if you want in different ways, maybe change how it behaves, but I think it's a great sound.
Right. Questions coming in. You know, we trail a little bit on the delay of the broadcast, so some people are now asking questions about the back of the rack.
Oh, wow.
One of those is about audio in, and people familiar with Thor might be familiar with Thor's audio input. So, audio in on this one?
No.
No.
And one of the, just so people are aware, when we tested this with some people, they asked, oh, but I want to send audio into the Spectral Filter. It's important to understand that Spectral Filter works only when we're generating wavetables, so it wouldn't work.
Right. It's a function of DSP, not a function of, well, I mean, everything's a function of DSP.
But so it's good to understand that, but not at this time, but never say never.
Right.
So let's try out another bass. This is more kind of a...
Randy, by the way, Randy says he's found the love of his life. Randy, I would like to believe that you mean either Mattias or myself, but too. maybe not. Maybe you mean Europa.
Hopefully that too. So this is more of a kind of, let's call it a normal bass. You know, you're doing some electronic music and you want just a tight, nice bass.
Now,
kind of a housey bass.
Yeah, that is, super housey. Yeah, it's got that little bouncy thing to it.
Yeah.
So now, not to beat a dead horse here, but the comments are still coming in. So I'm gonna go back to this.
More comments is good.
It's not a bad thing. So this discussion about the audio input seems to be focusing on the effects. They want access to the effects. And now I'm going to think out loud for a second. And again, I'm going to jump ahead of ourselves a little bit. But while it's not the same as audio in, the sample-based workflow of Grain, which shares the same effects, ultimately would give you access to processing audio using those effects. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. I mean, you can play back audio files, audio samples, tracks using Grain through the effects. But I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate the feedback. It's really good. Right now, we don't have it.
Right. Okay.
But I get where you're coming from. I really do.
Okay.
So we've chose some basses, and I want to kind of spread this out over different sounds. So let's try more of a kind of melodic sound. This is one that I think is nice because it's so, not in your face. Just a really nice, polyphonic synth sound.
Right.
I want to play it.
Right. There's a comment that came in that it's worth, as Reason users, there's these two camps. Well, there's a million camps, but if I were going to be real broad strokes about it, there's two camps. And one Aaron says, I'm not interested in presets, which is okay. Yeah. So Aaron, you are a guy who likes to dive in and work from scratch. And that's awesome. But what is a preset if not a series of settings that have already been preset? Right. So for people that want to dive in further ahead in the process, that's all you're really doing. You're sort of, I guess, jumping the queue a little bit in your creative process. You're finding something that's already close or near perfect to what you want.
Yeah.
And then you're working with it from there. So I think there's the two schools of thought, and I think both are completely valid. Yeah, so
absolutely. And I think I saw some comments going by about the fact lead, and I'm glad you agree with me. This is one of those sounds where it's just nice. I sat down playing with this for an hour before the stream just because I wanted to, see which sounds that I'm going to show. And this just stuck out, and I think it's lovely. And you can see it's actually using really straightforward waveforms here. So it's a sawtooth, square wave, and the basic analog going between sine and triangle. So, nothing strange, but it sounds great.
Yeah, let's hear a little more, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Maybe something more EDM focused. So this is actually a patch that I did. So in the early stages of the beta of this, in like the alpha when we were trying it out, we had one engine for a long time.
Jack says boards of Mattias.
I'm going to start that band now. So this is a patch I did just to see, can I get just a good sound from the one engine, kind of a standard synth sound? And this is just sawtooth in wide 2-voice stereo and a filter. And I think it's one of those kind of, you understand what I mean. Super effective. It's important to understand that such a complex synth can do those, good sounding bread and butter sounds.
Well, it's funny you call them bread and butter because we had a comment. I think his name was David. I saw it go by just a second ago. He said, I think every time you guys do a live stream, we should get to name one of the presets. And he was nominating one called Buttery Biscuit Bass. And I think it was a previous one, but you calling this bread and butter almost makes it feel like this one should be
right.
But thanks for the suggestion, David. I do like the idea of a patch name by committee.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the patch creators would love having them renamed.
But I can make one for you. That's okay. I can make more.
Okay, mental note, Buttery Biscuit Bass. Let's see if we can work that one in for David.
Bass, the triple B. Here's another patch that kind of showcased that you can get quite dirty and loud with something basic. So this is using both the noise mod and the hard clip up here to make this waveform quite jagged. Yes, it's a sawtooth, but there's stuff happening to it, and it's driven quite hard. Which is it's good to try those sounds out. But
someone had asked what was the name of that last one? The artist formerly known as Buttery Biscuit Bass.
The Nightclub Saw.
Nightclub Saw, okay.
So these are some more kind of almost traditional analog style patches. Let's try something that's very Europa and very hard to do without it. So this is one called The Approach, where I'm using it to morph between two custom-made wavetables. This weird one. Just a couple of peaks and a sawtooth. You can hear that you get this really nice sweeping sound. Coming in.
Yeah, we're no longer in subtractive synthesis territory.
Yeah, there's stuff going on there that I think is really cool, and it shows you what you can do if you just start making up waveforms. See what happens. We have some other pads that I think sound really good. Here's one that's using Purling Noise, which is a kind of a low-pass filtered slow noise. It doesn't sound like a noise. It's more like a sine wave fluctuating. What makes that so cool is that, as you can see here, it kind of moves over time in a way that like it's random almost. And if you play it, it's great with modifiers.
I gotta say,
around.
It's very tasteful.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes, with patches that evolve, they can evolve to such extreme degrees that you end up going, for me as a patch preset browser, I go, okay, well, how do I dial that back?
Then you're not gonna like my next patch. This is one that kind of shows you the power of just doing stuff over time. What's gonna happen here when I play? There's gonna happen a lot of stuff. So let's just look at these displays while I'll play just 2 notes.
No, I do like that.
Good. I'm happy you do.
Yeah.
This is just a way to show you what you can do when you really go into the envelopes and the various filter and engine algorithms.
I mean, I love, this is like where the visual feedback is so cool. Can we just zoom in on the spectral filter?
Yeah.
And can we just, you can literally watch the sound evolve while you hear it.
It's nice.
It's cool.
It's a really cool one. But okay, those are kind of space age, out there patches. Let's try something that maybe you don't think of a synth when you think about. So a lot of people have emailed me and tweeted me at times, from 6 years ago or just the other day about, I want some good 808 kicks, for example. We have some drum patches in Europa, actually. And I think this bass and kick is one of the coolest ones. It's just big.
Now, Chill Mode asks any urban R&B pads or presets. So I think this sort of falls into that wheelhouse to some degree.
I mean, most genres use it, but it's a mainstay of hip-hop and R&B to have that 808 bass. This one, it's extra cool because, the mod wheel is assigned to dirty it up a bit, so you can go. And suddenly, if you would have sampled an 808 kick, you couldn't do that stuff. So this adds another dimension, which I think is great. And there's also a matching snare that I think is one of those snares that I wondered for the longest time. Why can't I get this snare? I was looking for samples, trying to do something. And then this came up in the patch library. Short, kind of noisy, pitched.
Yeah.
It's a lovely one.
That's got some nice punch to it, too.
Yeah. Now we're getting to a place we've been before. Plucktown.
Plucktown.
We're getting back into Plucktown. If you were with us with
I always love going to you always take me. You are my guide into Pluckville.
Guide to Pluckville. So this is an example of the Car plus Strong algorithm, the string simulation, where you can just get really...
And just to remind people, we're talking about this is then a dynamic wavetable?
Exactly.
Okay.
This is one that you can see changes quite a bit over time. Quite nice.
It's quite nice.
We also have another type of pluck that I think is nice to show the subtle side of this. This is, as you can see, it looks like a sine wave, but it's kind of bent out of shape.
Huh. And
this is using something really cool for the sound designers out there. So this is for the geeks. There's a modulator.
Ben Knowles says that was plucking beautiful.
Lovely.
10 points, Ben.
10 points. This is using a modifier called random, which means that every time I hit a note, it's going to get a random value. See, it actually changes. I can take that up and you can really get an effect.
Ooh.
And this makes a sound that is really dynamic to play.
I feel like I'm ready to make some Imogen Heap album with you now.
I'm always ready.
We just need Imogen Heap. That's the only problem.
Yeah. This is an example of how you can use some random modulation and do kind of small stuff that makes a big difference. And then we don't want to leave Pluck City, Pluckville, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Yet. So here's a nice kind of really straightforward but useful EDM pluck. This is great with players.
I'm so glad you did that because I was going to ask if we could actually kind of throw some players on here.
Yeah, so let's do my favorite patch, Anthem Chords. Big, nice chords.
Take that, chain smokers.
That's mean.
I don't mean in a mean way.
It's one of those patches that, again, we're using one engine here. One engine that's quite straightforward.
Really nice.
Yeah, I love that patch. It's one of my favorites. But we also need some big polysynths.
Now, before we do, hang on.
Yeah.
Would you mind? No, not a question. No, my own. This is my own.
Question.
I'm having fun in Pluckville, and I may not. I want to take one loop around the block before we do. Now that you've got that player on, I was curious how that same Anthem Chords applies to some of those other Pluck sounds. If they.
Yeah, let's try it out with the nice sign of the times, pun of the day.
Yeah, could we?
Nice.
It does it for me.
We can try it with the Car Plus. Also nice.
Has
a long reverb.
It really does.
But hey, we can keep the player on for a while and try maybe this Atlantis sauce patch.
Billy Reynolds wants to know if there's any combinator patches that are going to be coming with this as well.
For Europa?
Yeah.
Europa's mainly going to come with big Europa patches. Over 400 of them. Combinator patches is not the focus this time. We want to kind of show you the synth first before we use it in other contexts.
This is worth, though, I'm going to just make a point of mentioning here. The fact that Europa is a native device in Reason 10 opens up the world of patch creators and refill creators that, doesn't apply if, take Parsec, for example, is a rack extension. Some people have it, some people don't. So as a patch creator, if you're a refill library creator, you have a certain subset audience that you're looking at. But if you want to create a sound library, a patch library for Europa that is your own custom combinators, you now know that every Reason 10 user has that synth. And so you can very confidently make patches with it.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons we did it to begin with. We wanted every Reason user to have access to this type of, big, flexible, huge sounding, cool synth. That's why we're here. So let's show you some big poly patches. Here's just kind of one that shows you a lot of detuned stacked sawtooth, because you need that, right? It's a really nice kind of almost normal sound.
Yeah. With a just a little bit something of a modern twist to it.
Yeah, this is a hint of stuff's changing, right? We also have on the opposite side of the multiple sawtooth spectrums, we have this that's more harsh, that's more high passy and big. Almost so big that you get a bit like, oh wow. So again, if I bring up the Anthem chords, you can hear kind of the point of this badge. Big.
Take that, Calvin Harris.
You're gonna just keep insulting EDM musicians.
I'm not insulting. I'm starting. I'm gonna try to start beef just between me and them.
That's mean, but it's a big saw sound. That's what I wanted to try.
Yeah.
So let's have some more kind of wavetable, more what's going on polysynths. So this one is using quite a weird looking waveform over here. And that's what gives it its character, I think.
So wait, what is that?
This is, I don't know what to call the waveform, but...
yeah, it's not a waveform unlike any we've ever seen.
Exactly. And this is what happens when you combine things, right? This is using, let's turn off the modifiers and you can see. This is using a glitchy square, a square that has kind of an issue with it. It's changing where that glitch is. It adds an octave up. It adds some sync to get other pitch changes.
Can we turn those modifiers off and kind of hear the...
We have multiple waves here, so let's this one. Basic. Little bit of
thinner
sound.
Yeah, so it's just hollowing it out. Yeah,
exactly.
Giuseppe says it sounds a lot like a Nord A1. So, all right.
Yeah, I honestly haven't used that, and we just said I've used all since. We lied.
I think I said nearly all. That's the one you haven't used.
Safe. So those were pretty, again, standard patches. Here's one using the envelopes. So the envelopes, yes, they're great for doing envelopes, but they're also great for just doing rhythmic stuff. So listen to what this sequence is doing.
Now, it happens to me every time during these streams that we'll hit a point where I'll go, okay, we're going to sign off now and I'm going to go make a track. And that's this one for me. That's where I just instantly go, oh, I can hear the four things I want to add to that, you know?
Yeah. And this shows you kind of how you can do more rhythmic modulation with these envelopes. And there's more where that came from. So here's a bass using the envelopes to create effect.
Wow.
And that's giving it its kind of rhythm. But as you can see here, there's a lot of cool effects going on here.
Right.
There's a lot of distortion and there's some noise and a custom waveform. There's a lot of things happening in this sound.
Right.
Yeah.
That is nice.
And the final example of an envelope generated thing. This shows what you can do when you're routing the envelope. Instead of to filters, to pitch. Pretty cool patch.
That is
I really
pretty cool.
like that one.
Yeah.
Shows
And
you
that's-
just how much you can, try out.
And when we talked about, and forgive me if I'm wrong in this, I think it was Kevin that was saying that he wasn't a patch browser. Maybe it wasn't Kevin. This is one of those, or no, saying he wasn't a sound designer. This is one of those ones where you see that envelope and you can hear how it's affecting the sound and you know what it's doing. But if you wanted to have it play a different pattern or a different rhythm or different pitches and have it, do different things, it's very easy to take that as your starting point and going, okay, I like that concept, but now I'm going to adapt it for my own taste or my own music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, so we have a request for a couple more bass sounds. I wonder if we could actually sort of send you in on the fly without your curated list.
Without my secret list.
Without your secret curated list, and maybe just check out some bass patches.
Give me 1 second and I'll find them. I believe that I have hidden them here. And bass. No, effects. Bass. That's where we want to be.
And I'm seeing a couple now. What's happening now is we're going to get a couple more requests for other types of patches people might want to see more of.
Yep.
Are you cool if we throw out some more?
Sure.
We'll look at some basses, and so there's some requests for maybe some other pad-based, airy pads.
And one
stuff.
thing that I can't do is that I haven't gone through all these patches.
You don't know by name,
Exactly. We just got 400 something patches. So I'm going to try a couple of basses and see what you think.
Cool.
So let's try the beefy bass.
This is Mattias operating without a net.
Yep. It sounded beefy. Let's try this one. That is more of an animated kind of sound. I see something called Reese. Gotta check it out.
There's a question from Trenton McNally. He asks, "Can I use Europa with my modular synths?" That's more of a tech question.
It is, and it kind of depends on what you mean.
Yeah,
that's a tricky question. In terms of using CV from modular synths inside Reason, there are ways to do that. You need some kind of interface that handles converting signals and stuff. There's an expert sleepers rack extension, if I don't misremember, that actually helps convert stuff from the modular world to Reason's world. So you should check out the expert sleepers rack extension and you'll find out a lot more.
Gotcha. Okay.
So let's try this respace real quick. Dirty,
yeah. You ain't kidding.
Let's try maybe this one. Also quite dirty.
Orlando would like to hear Otekra bass if you see it in there.
That's not a patch. That's probably he wants to hear bass that. Like
is it? I thought maybe he was seeing a patch name there.
No, and I don't think I can do one on the fly.
On the fly, yeah, right. Mattias will very soon be intimately familiar with this patch list, as we probably all will. But
yeah,
they're as new to him as they can be.
Yeah, I'll try a couple other ones. It's an aggressive robot. Let's see, pulse rate maybe. And maybe one more down here. Let's see.
Mike asks, he loves how the browser looks. Is that shipping with Reason 10? Absolutely. What Mattias is running Reason 10 right now. So.
Yes, I am. Kind of a normal sounding bass. I could go through all of this, but we don't have that much time. So was it pads they wanted to use?
Airy pads was another category, which I guess we can get to pads and hopefully we'll land on some airy ones.
Let's try this colors pad.
I would say that's airy.
Yeah.
I mean, airy is a subjective word.
We'll see.
Wait, okay. Yes, can we please release the valve on the oxygen tank there? Make it even airier.
This has a lot of unison modulation going on. And the crystal name, that's kind of how it sounds, I think.
Sure.
Maybe some fuzzy skies.
I have to I'm going to take a moment here and just compliment you. The ability that you land on the keys and start playing something suitable for that patch, it's admirable.
It's years of product specialist training.
Yeah, I mean, you know, guys, if we were to switch seats and have me in Mattias's chair, I think we would hear something quite different. We would find the limitations of my playing.
So let's try another pad here. Ooh. Nice attack. And maybe a noisy pad and see if that sounds airy. That was nice.
Yeah.
There's a couple of pad sounds. I hope you like them.
I hope so too.
I like them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have sort of set out to do the introduction, get to know Europa, and take a spin through the patches. I hope that we have done a good job for people. You know, from some of the comments coming in, I think people have started to understand the power that is in Europa. And there's this almost this visual disconnect because it looks so approachable. You may, on first glance alone, go, you know, can it really make these amazingly complex sounds? The answer is yes. So there's a question coming in from Ben about automation. How much of this synth is automatable? And maybe you could give us some insight into that.
That'd be all of it.
All of it.
Pretty much everything is automatable. All the effects parameter, all the engine stuff. One thing that isn't automatable is like the curve of the envelope. And where the points are in that.
Oh, those sort of the drawing tool things that you do. Okay.
And that's because you can have like so many points as you saw before. So suddenly it becomes quite unfeasible to know what's going on.
You don't want to say, just right click on the 237th point.
Yeah, exactly.
And create the 237th
everything
lane.
else is ready to be automated. And again, you can try it out either if you get in during beta or when the product comes out.
Right. Okay. Well, guys, I think we should throw out, as we kind of wrap up here, any last questions of things you might want to talk about. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's coming on the next stream. So throw in your last questions, but maybe if I could throw one at you here.
Yeah.
Could we maybe get a sneak peek at what is coming on the next stream?
You're that guy.
I'm that guy.
Well, I'll play you just one grain patch.
Oh, Ron is actually asking for a sneak peek of grain. Ron, great minds think alike. You and me, buddy.
I'll play you one grain patch, and I'll show you two things. I'll show you what was the sound I put into grain. That sounds like this. Let's make sure the volume is correct. That's what I put in. It's part of a song.
Some sort of sample from a song. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to play it.
So
That's what we're going to talk about.
now go back and now that we've played that, go back and play the original source sample.
A lot of stuff happened.
That's grain. That's grain, guys, and that's coming on our next stream. It is an entirely different way to think about synthesis, and an entirely different way to think about every sound you could get or already have.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that I've been doing the early testing of this, just going through my folders of music and just dropping them in, see what happens.
Yeah.
Lovely. You're going to have a lot of fun with that too.
That is cool. That's really cool. I hope people enjoyed it. Yeah, people seem to be excited by that as well. We're going to look at that in a lot more detail on our next stream. So just to give you a little taste, there's a lot more of that coming with grain. But as it relates to today's stream, I'd call this a rousing success.
I'm very happy.
I hope everybody has enjoyed it.
Yeah. You can spend days just trying all the different combinations, all the wavetables and stuff, but we need to leave something for you to do, you know?
Exactly.
When you get it. You need to check it out.
And so it's worth mentioning that this is in beta right now.
Yep.
And that is a public beta.
Yep.
Am I correct in saying? So people can sign up if they want to get in and start testing this themselves.
Yeah.
And seeing what it's all about. They can sign up for the beta on our website.
And the public beta will start going live next week. We're still in a private beta state.
Gotcha. Okay, so next week the public beta starts.
Exactly.
Okay, but am I correct in saying people can sign up already?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so there's nothing stopping you from already signing up to be on part of the public beta, and then I guess the beta team will start bringing people into that beta testing group in waves, right? They bring people in waves.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, excellent. I think that's it. I'm just scanning to see if there's any other questions here that people are asking. One is, when is the next stream? That's an excellent question. One I don't have an official answer for because it may be Wednesday and it may be Friday, and it's lame to give that as my answer. But that is the actual answer.
That is the actual
so
answer.
the fact is, we'll tell you via Facebook the same way you found out about this stream. We'll let you know about future streams. Yeah. And I can also happily report, I'm looking up here at my recorder, and I'm now very confident in saying that we have a stereo full HD archive of this that will go onto YouTube, and it may even go onto Facebook as well. I don't know what the limits are for how long a program can be on Facebook, but that's going to go online. You'll be able to watch this in full HD, which I'm sure will do wonders for you and I. But also, you're going to get
to so good.
Yeah.
In full HD.
In full HD. Yeah, we might have to apply some, low res filter.
Don't be scared.
But it also means that these unison sounds and these big stereo sounds, you're going to be hearing them in true stereo.
Yes.
So anyone who's wanting to see that, in the past, we've always put the Facebook version of these streams on YouTube. And I will say it's not something we do without criticism. Yep. People don't love mono low resolution streams on YouTube,
as they shouldn't.
As they shouldn't, right? And so we've done you one better. So we're going to put up a high quality archive of that as well. So anyway, Ben Knowles says, "Can I come work for you?" Yeah, we're always recruiting. Yeah. Ben, come Ben. Join us.
Show us what you can do.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thanks, guys, a bunch. I want to thank Mattias. I want to thank, obviously, the whole Reason team that brought Europa to all of us, just as musicians. You know, I selfishly always go back to my own time as a musician before I was, question guy, as it says right there. I love Europa, and in the limited bit that I've gotten to use it, and I can't wait to get into it more. So to the guys that brought that about, thanks to all you guys. I think it's awesome. And I hope everybody really enjoys getting into it the way that I have.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
I love it too.
Yeah.
I've been using it for a while now, and I'm just starting to get ideas all the time. Get up in the middle of the night, go, patch. Need to make this patch.
Right.
And I'll send them over to you when I'm done.
Good. Please do.
In Reason 10.
Please do. I've actually enjoyed some of Mattias's early patches that he sent me. So you guys are going to love this. I mean, if you've gotten just a taste of it, and you're going to absolutely love this synth, you're going to love grain, you're going to love everything that's in Reason 10. And we can't wait to show more of it to you. So we will be seeing you on our next stream. We're going to be looking all at grain. And absolutely, by all means, tune in. We'll let you know via Facebook when that's going to be. It'll be next week. And go ahead and get hype.
Yeah. Get hype.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a bunch. We have enjoyed it, and we will see you guys real soon. Yay!